Thank you for coming to my channel. Thank you for watching this video. If you don't know who I am, my name is Tina Patterson. I am an attorney in Detroit, Michigan, USA. And I practice primarily in the areas of probate, estate planning, and civil litigation. So probate is going to the courts and kind of rearranging property and assets and distributions and things of that nature after one passes away. Estate planning is kind of the front end of that, trying to make sure that the plans are in place. So once a death happens, the plan can be followed accordingly. And then civil litigation is just lawsuits. And I primarily focus on injustices. So if somebody's been wrongly taken advantage of in like a contract situation, especially as it relates to property, and also if they had some kind of rights discriminated against, that's when I would get involved. So those are the three areas of practice I mainly do business in my firm. And I just wanted to give you that kind of background in case you didn't already know. So the reason that I'm really here today going live is to give top 10 lessons in 10 years of reflection on today, February 8th. I see my calendar here just says February 6th. Forgive me. It's manual, so this is live, this is real. But today is February 8th, 2023. 10 years ago, February 8th, 2013, I lost my father. My father is Tyrone Patterson. This is his obituary right here. This is him. Okay, February 8th, 2013 is when he passed away. And I'm not coming on here to say, woe is me. I'm not coming on here to express grief. I'm not coming on here to give a glowing tribute. I'm not doing any of that. The purpose today is to teach. So I'm going to be teaching lessons I learned from him that can be applied directly into the areas of law that I practice. And you'll see it as we kind of go along through it. I'm also directly to life. Okay, these are just life practices and principles that are good to share, and they directly contribute, connect, and can be applied into the many facets of life that we all experience and that I try to reach and serve people by through my law practice. Okay. So I just want to give you that background. And then also, I think it is important to note that this is February. This was not a coincidence when this happened. I don't believe in coincidences. I think everything happens for a reason. February is Black History Month. And obviously, that is not just important for me as a Black woman, but it's an important time in my family history. And with my father, you'll see exactly why that is. So I did want to acknowledge that. I'm not sure how long this video is going to last. I have pages, okay, front and back of notes here. And I'm not going to be going off script, but this is not like a complete script. This is my outline. This is what I want to talk about. So forgive me if there are kind of any errors or if it seems like we're going off script. I'm just going with the flow at this point, okay? And if you want to, you can chime in on the comments and share this video as we're going along, all right? So thank you. And you can subscribe and all that as well. So the top 10 lessons, life lessons, law lessons that can be directly applied right now. Number 1, okay? And I have some exhibits here that I can back up my claims, okay? Any good lawyer must be able to back up their claims with objective evidence. So I have them here. I have objective evidence and I have personal experience, which in the legal world is testimony, right? Witness testimony. Okay, so first lesson I learned, you have to be fierce, okay? Fierce, F-I-E-R-C-E, fierce. You have to be fierce. That's the first word that comes to mind when I think of my father. And anybody, family, non-family, co-workers, distant relatives, whomever, if they knew him, they would agree because that man was fierce, okay? It's the first word that came to my mind when I thought about all of this last night. He did not play, all right? No one dared to try him. All right. He was that kind of man. You did not want to go up against him. You didn't want to get in an argument with him. And he would never put a hand on you. Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but it all applies. So my father was a Wayne County sheriff. He retired from the Wayne County Sheriff's Office here in Detroit, in Michigan. Wayne County is our largest county. This is where Detroit is located. And he worked as a sheriff for the Wayne County Sheriff's Department for 30 years, I believe 30 years, and that's where he retired from. So he didn't play around, okay? He was trained in all that stuff, but he was never going to use it to hurt you. This is why I say you have to be fierce. You use it to your advantage, okay? He didn't use it as an offensive weapon. He used it as a strong guard, as a defense to benefit himself and others. And I want to just share a story about that. So I'm going to be sharing stories, like I said, throughout this presentation to demonstrate just how valuable these principles are and how you can put them to practice in real life. Okay, you don't have to do these exact things, but these situations, these stories parallel, all right, how you can apply them. So and then this is February. Again, all fitting, nothing is coincidence. So this is February. February is not only Black History Month, but it's also right in the midst of tax season, right? You get all your tax information back at the end of January. Excuse me, February is when people really start setting their appointments and the money starts coming in if you're owed a refund, etc., or paying out if you owe. So when dealing with taxes, right, we think about the IRS. And to a lot of people, there's nothing scarier. There's no greater opponent than the IRS, okay, the Internal Revenue Service, the Department of Treasury Internal Revenue Service, okay? And this is why I said you have to be fierce, because it really does not matter who your opponent is. You must stand your ground if you stand your ground on truth, all right? So back in the 90s, sorry, this is the 90s, not even 10 years ago. Well, he was past, but 15 years ago, not even the new millennium, okay? This was 20th century in the 90s. And I have documentation here. So there was a dispute that my father claimed that he filed with the IRS. And when I say you have to be fierce, this man wrote a handwritten letter, okay? I don't know if you can see the date, August 28th, 1995, a handwritten letter to the IRS telling them that their figures were wrong. And you know what? This was after they had already issued a refund check because he said that they were wrong. Okay, I find this fascinating because this is something that most people just, they cower in fear. They just give their money away because they think they're wrong, they can't win, and that's not true. Look at this. We apologize for any, I don't know if you can see, we apologize for any inconvenience we may have caused you, and thank you for your cooperation. This is from August 11th, 1995. You have to be fierce, okay? Life is always going to have its difficulties, all right? It's always going to try you, but instead of constantly, I learned this recently, okay? It can feel like it's tiring and it's hard and it's a lot of work to constantly like be on the guard, you know, when things come up, and things come up, okay? This is life. It has to. There's no way around that. And so we feel like we always have to be on the guard. We always have to like put it up. We always have to constantly be vigilant, which we should be. But what I've learned recently and what applies to this lesson is that instead of constantly putting up the guard and being exhausted by that, put your guard up and keep it up. Leaving the guard up is easy, but constantly putting it back up and down, that's exhausting. Leave it up, okay? Easy, all right? So don't be afraid to be fierce. You have to be fierce. Not all the time, but when the situation calls for it. And then when you start doing it more and more and you get practice in it, and it almost becomes second nature. Like I said, people knew that about my father. He was fierce. You did not play, okay? They knew that, so they tried less and less. All right, so that's the lesson. Be fierce. Be fierce for justice, for the right reasons, okay? Fierce for justice, fierce for righteousness, all the right reasons. Not to be anti anybody, but to be pro yourself, okay? And pro other people to benefit them. Always use your tools for good, never evil, all right? Second lesson, which goes along to the being fierce part. And I had this as the third, but it goes directly into being, into the first lesson, excuse me, it goes directly into being fierce. So the second lesson, you cannot be afraid to fight, okay? Fighting, a just battle, all right, is necessary. You cannot be afraid to fight. You can't, all right? So a little bit of background about my father. He was born, his birth date is here, April 19th, 1949. 1949, okay? before the civil rights era really started, because it kind of took off in 1955 with Emmett Till. Since we're talking about Black History Month anyway in February, and you can see here the Civil Rights Museum memorial brochure I have here is back from the 90s also, and we'll get into that. But he was born in the Jim Crow South, okay, in Tuskegee, Alabama. So you can imagine how that was for him as a Black man. Okay, born there, he came up to the North when he was still a young age, but they would go back and travel there to the South every summer, and he had family there. Still, his grandmother lived there, etc. So you cannot be afraid to fight. It was dangerous in those times. Okay, Emmett Till, we know that. We know what happened. We know the stories. We know how dangerous it was. Life was literally on the line, but didn't stop him from fighting. Okay. I remember when I was in elementary school, probably the earliest memories I have. I know at least by 10 years old, I heard a lot of this already. He would tell me stories of getting into fights with young white boys when he was a boy in the South. Counterparts that would call him the N-word. He told me stories about his grandfather and how people would call him, a grown man who was a World War II Navy veteran, would call him a boy, because he was Black. Discrimination and that feeling like Blacks are lesser than. But that didn't penetrate to my father, and he wasn't afraid to fight back, right? When that was trying to fight him down, he was not afraid. And there are other instances of that I want to share. Mark is my exhibit 2, if you will. You see it here too, fight. So you can't be afraid to fight. And like I said, he was a police officer. You see that here. This is his corporal badge from the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, where he retired from in 2004. But some stories I want to share with you. Even though he was a police officer, and this is also relevant, again, nothing coincidental. And I didn't even plan it, but it had to happen this way. So in addition to it being Black History Month, obviously, we know what happens with Black people in the police. We're still dealing with the murder, the execution, the aberration, or how do I want to say it? The abhorrence, if you will, of George Floyd and what happened to him. And now Tyre Nichols and Memphis. I mean, enough has been enough, okay? But I just want to let you know that even though my father was a police officer, he was a Black man. He did not let that badge go above his humanity, okay? So I want to show you first some old clippings, and I'm going to tell you a story. So this, I don't even know what year this is from, but you can see it's old, it's tarnished. It's an old newspaper clipping. You know how when you go through people's things after they pass away, you find just the most fascinating artifacts? This is one of them. So, and here it says police, Black men cited more often. Okay, so my father's a police officer, but he's still seeing the police and collecting history that the police are discriminating against Black people. Second one here is one of the most fascinating historical documents I have. I always make sure I keep this in a safe location. This was actually a clipping from December 4th, 1969. Okay, you can see the date up there. Black history on December 4th, 1969, the police executed a man named Fred Hampton, who was a leader in the Black Panther Party. Now, why, and this was in, I think, Chicago, the Chicago area, it was Illinois. Why would a Black police officer be collecting this stuff? Because he knew that it was wrong. Okay, and he was not afraid to fight back against that, even with his position. So now let me tell you a story that I heard from my uncle, his oldest brother, who he was closest to probably more than anybody. They were only a year apart. So there was a story. It's scary how similar it is to the George Floyd situation, and how much you realize that there could have, as many George Floyds as there have been, there could have been so many more, really. So my father was on active duty at the time, and he was going as backup to a white officer who had stopped a young Black man. And I don't know what happened prior to my father getting there, but the white officer was like roughhousing this Black man. He's already on the ground. Does that sound familiar? He's already on the ground. He's already cuffed. He's already in custody. All right. He's already been detained. He cannot fight back. All right. He's already bound. But this white officer proceeded to either put his foot or his knee on this Black man's neck. My father, in his full uniform as a Black man, said, and my father had a potty mouth. He swore, so I'm not going to swear here, but he said, take your foot off of his neck. He was not afraid to fight, even if it was fighting his own people, the police officer, right? You cannot be afraid to fight. You have to fight against any threat to your values, to your ideals, to your core beliefs that are rooted in truth and justice and righteousness, okay? You have to fight the injustice in this world. It's hard. It is hard, especially when so many people don't want to fight and so many people are trying to talk you out of the fight because they're afraid. Don't let their fear be your fear. Don't. Let their courage be your courage, okay? Borrow that. Don't borrow the fear. So that's number 2. You have to fight. Number 3 is you must provide for your family, okay? I'm not going to get too much into this one, but I wanted to put it in here because as much as I've already led off with just being fierce and fighting, you have to care for people. You have to care for people, and you have to start in your own home, okay? I don't want to get biblical, but there are very good biblical principles that you can live by, and one of them is really taking care of your own first, okay? So you have to provide for your family. Even though my father was this big, fierce man, he was 6 foot, always been a very medium stock person, right? Never frail looking or frail in his appearance and his cadence. His voice was very deep and loud. It was loud, okay? Uh, it doesn't mean that he just was mean, He liked people, he did. And he was very good to his family. He was a provider. You have to provide for your family. Okay. We were never in want or need of anything. And we weren't, ultra rich. We weren't millionaires. We weren't anything like that. But he always provided. Like I said, 30 years in the police department. We'll get into why that's so important. But that helped to sustain his family over the years. And it's still helping. And we'll get into that also. But I just want to give you a preview of that and let you know why it's so important. Okay. So we're never wanting need of anything. He worked all the time. Even though my mom worked too full-time, they were both full-time, but my dad was the one who paid all the bills. And I mean, he took care of stuff. He had the house in order. He took us to school, myself and my younger brother. He took us to school in the morning, even though he worked midnights. He would get home at 7 a.m. He would have us in school by 8 a.m. Okay. And then he picked us up. He picked us up at 3 p.m. So he would sleep during the day, sometimes oversleeping, but we all make mistakes. We all get tired, right? And it's okay. But he would be the one that would be responsible for our school day, pretty much getting us there and bringing us back home. And I realized all that he did at an early age. I might not have had the language or the framework for it, but I did understand that he did that stuff. And then I obviously appreciated it the older I became, and especially as I transitioned into a parent. Okay, so number 3, you must provide for your family. Number 4, and it's good that it's working out in this order, finances are important. Okay, we don't like to talk about money a lot, or we don't like to even express our want, not even our need. We know we need to pay the bills, to pay the mortgage. We know we need to pay the car note. We know we need to earn wages or earn profit if we're in a business. We know we need all that stuff. We never really express it as a want. Okay. And so let me just tell you a quick story before I get into that a little bit more. So story time. Oh, and let me see if I can, I don't know if I can pull it up in my phone. If I can, I'll try to. Let me just see quickly, because I did mean to have that ready for you, but I got all excited with my papers that I forgot about, like the technology. I forgot all about that. So let me see if I can just pull it up really quickly. Okay, I'm sure I can while I do that. Okay, sorry for the pause here, but I think it's important because it directly correlates with the story I'm about to tell. So you can see why finances are important. Okay. All right, I got it. All right, so the story I'm going to talk about finances. So when I was almost 18, when I was graduating from high school and I was getting ready for the prom, it was almost 20 years ago now. Okay. I know you see it. All right, almost 20 years ago now. I had a job, a part-time job. I worked for minimum wage back then. And so But I didn't think I was irresponsible. I did pay for a lot of the stuff that I, needed for prom. So my prom dress, my shoes, accessories, those things and what I wanted to look like. I had the money for that. But as it came closer and closer to prom, I was $100 short. I thought I had everything together. I needed an extra $100, even though I'm working, right? My dad's gonna take me to work, okay? I'm working. I am buying things already, so there's demonstrative action there that I've already taken to do these things with my money. But I needed the extra $100. I knew my dad would have it, so I asked him, and he gave me the extra $100, but he didn't give it without a lesson. Okay, he was disappointed. Can you believe that? I told you I had already been working towards the shoes. I had some accessories. I had a job he was taking me to. Okay, but he was still upset that I asked him. And I didn't wanna I'm 17, I'm like, "Give me the money now, I don't wanna hear it, I just want what I want." That's how we think when we're young. So, he gave me the money, but he was basically the lesson he taught me was, you need to be taking care of your own stuff. You need to make sure that you have your own money. You need to make sure you're not wasting it. You need to make sure that you're saving it so that you can have it when you need it, right? And I was mad, like I said, because I had everything in order. I'm working, I am saving. I did buy stuff already that I needed for it, but I was just this little much short. I didn't wanna hear it then, and I resolved at that time to never ask him for money again, and I really didn't, okay, until, uh, 7 years later, alright? I'm older now, I was about 24, 25, I think. This was the just a few months really before he passed away, okay? I'm in my last semester of law school, I already got 6 figures worth of loans to go to law school, I had already graduated from college with 1 degree, which is the picture you see on the thumbnail here. But I needed money and I didn't know this, right? Sometimes you don't know what you know or until it presents itself to you, right? So you don't know what's going to be coming. So you can't always plan ahead, but you can try as much as you can. So I didn't know I would need money, not for law school, but to study to take the bar exam. And this is after I already paid for bar exam fees, okay? Hundreds of dollars. But I needed 3,000 more dollars at that time. I don't know how much it is now. This was 10 years, 11 years ago. I needed 3,000 more dollars to study for the bar exam, to take a bar study course. I didn't learn this in law school. I didn't know I needed another $3,000 to learn how to take the bar exam. And I couldn't get it anywhere because I'm already, in debt with my student loans. And at that time, when I started law school, I was working full time. But when I ended it, I wasn't working anymore because I was focused on finishing law school full time. So I asked my dad, I said, I asked him for a loan though this time. I didn't ask him for the money like I did before. I remember that still. I didn't want the money. I was like, can I borrow it and I'll pay you back? But this time, he just gave me the money. I didn't ask for a gift. I said I wanted to pay him back. But he just gave me the money right away, wrote a check, gave me the money. And it ended up being the last gift he ever gave me. Okay, because like I said, he passed away just a few months later. This had to be probably October 2012. I'm in my last semester of law school, getting ready to study for the bar exam. Actually, in February, I was scheduled to take it in February 2013, but I couldn't do it at that time. All right, so that ended up being the last gift he ever gave me, and he was able to do it because he managed his finances well. Finances are important. So if you want to see just a little bit of that, that's what I was trying to pull up. This is my prom dress here and my dad there. This is on prom night. And so that's what I needed the extra $100 for and I got mad about. But here I am now, able to do everything I'm able to do because he helped me and because he taught me that lesson. Finances are important. Be on top of your money. It's very important. And don't be afraid to tell other people that. Okay. We don't talk about it enough. And I can go on and on about that, but I have 5, 6 more, and I wanna get through them, not as fast as possible, but I don't wanna be dragging either. Number 5 is foresight. You have to have foresight to really envision the future that you want, even if other people don't see it. That's the caveat. Even if other people don't see it. Okay, so story time again. In the neighborhood I live in, it's a designated historic community. And back in 2008, Okay, what happened in 2008? The Great Recession, right? So all the mortgages are going underwater. Everybody's losing their home. Foreclosures at an all-time high. All these bad financial things are happening after, and this is very fitting after we're talking about how important finances are. So all these bad things were happening, and the house next door to us had been vacant for a while. We had a very long time neighbor there who's very sweet. I remember her. She used to send me the highlights books, okay, when I was in elementary school. But sometime between, I want to say, me being 10 years old and that time, which was I was 20. So sometime in that decade, she passed away. And there was no stable occupancy for that decade. So 2008, the house is empty, right? It's foreclosed because somebody lost it. Like everybody's losing it. And the value is down. All right. My dad bought the house. And guess what else was happening in 2008? My brother was getting ready to graduate from high school. My younger brother was getting ready to graduate from high school and go to college. He was mad. Okay. And I was kind of mad too. Like, why are you buying this house? But my brother was, why are you buying this house when I'm about to go to college? You can use that money to send me to college, right? What are you doing? I'm supposed to be more important, right? But again, my daddy managed finances, so there was enough for both, okay? But the house, and why I say foresight is so important, even if other people don't see it, he bought the house at that time for $20,000. All right, a house in a historic neighborhood will never be $20,000 unless it's just like literally half built, maybe. All right. But this was 2008, the recession happening. So instead of seeing just a piece of junk, right, or just some old house, my father saw value. Okay. He saw appreciation. He had a vision of something greater than what we saw. And now, 15 years, 15 years, wow, 15 years later, that house is easily worth 10 times what he paid for it. Probably more. Maybe 20 times, honestly. It's easily worth that much more. And it's still in the family. Okay. But he had to have the foresight to see it. Now, if he didn't, that value would not be in our family. I mean, it's just something to think about. He did it despite anybody else saying that that was the wrong thing to do. Sometimes you have to be convicted in your own foresight, in your own visions. And you might be wrong sometimes, okay? You might be. But don't be afraid, again. Don't be afraid to step out on faith on that foresight, even if others don't see it. So that's number 5. Number 6, which is so fitting for February. I'm so glad I get to share this during Black History Month. Number 6 is knowing your family history. And it's something that I have the honor and privilege of for as much of it as I have, because I know Black people here in the United States, maybe around the world also, but I know here from my own experience in the U.S. that Black people have been robbed of their family histories and feel, we still feel that wound, so many of us. And because of that, we feel like we don't know who we are because that history has been stripped from us. Okay. So I'm very honored and privileged to have as much of it as I do and to know it. And then my father shared it. Okay. A lot of us too, and our elders, and we'll get into the generations too, might have it, but don't share it. Or they might have it and share a vision, share the history that's not good and pass it on instead of the good history from it. So story time before I show you my documents here. So, and like I said, this is very important. Let me see if I can. So actually, this is from the Civil Rights Memorial in Montgomery, Alabama. So my father was from Tuskegee. If I'm not mistaken, Montgomery is the capital. I can never remember if it's Montgomery or Birmingham, but we visited both anyway. Okay, we go there every summer in the 90s. I remember, just like my father used to go every summer when he was in elementary school. He took us every summer in elementary school in the 90s. We would drive, okay? We didn't fly. I didn't get on a plane until I was 12 years old. We would drive from Detroit, Michigan to Tuskegee, Alabama, cross into Columbus, Georgia, where his mother is from. And you'll see the family history. That's really where it started, in Georgia. So we would drive there to visit family, to visit old relatives. or more distant relatives. Visit his friends too. He had friends in Alabama. My mom too, that I remember us visiting, and I think they're all passed away now. God rest their souls, but I remember them well. Um, but we had that. We had that history. I mean, I was like 9. I remember. I have pictures. I wish I could remember the pictures. I have a picture of myself being 9, and my brother. He was probably 4 or 5, and we're sitting at the foot of the slave in the statue of Booker T. Washington at Tuskegee University, where he's lifting the veil of ignorance. I mean, we're there. It's a bright, sunny day. You can see us all there. I remember that picture. I don't know where it is anymore, but I remember being there. I'm 9 years old, and I remember not just being there, but the importance of it, the value of it, why it was so important, because just all the terrible history we have, this is something that we can claim for ourselves. And so I just want to share that with you, and as well as my exhibit number 6 here. We would go to the family reunions. Okay. I remember the first one I went to still. I don't remember much of it. I remember I was there and I do remember some of the things that happened, and the pictures I do have those memories stored. I was 3 years old. Okay. This was back in the 1990. Okay. Right when it started. That was in St. Louis, but I have some things here. So lineage of the Morris family. My grandmother's maiden name was Morris, and so that's the family that we were able to trace back. So this is the Morris family from Chicago in August of '99. I remember going to that one. This was probably one of the last ones we went to. No, we went to one a year after. But this was from Washington D.C., the Morris family reunion, and I'm actually in the program on this one. I have to find it, but I was getting ready to start high school when we went, so there was some kind of announcement about that. But yeah, 90, 99, 2001. There was one in Dayton, Ohio in 2002. I was 15. I remember going to that one. But it was so important because we had that history to reclaim and to be proud of and to know about. And it really helped to plant a seed of who we were. That seed wasn't missing. So we weren't out here just out in the wild. You know, we knew, we had an appreciation for it. And not just that, we had appreciation for how, like, again, for how many generations had to survive for us to be here. I mean, I can't overestimate that. It's so important. I'm trying to see if I can find and I've been doing digging. I don't have it all, but the first generation here is like literally from the 1800s. It goes back that far. And I wish it could go back farther, but we know what was happening in the 1800s in the United States, in Georgia. We know. Okay. And so it just, for me, it gives me a sense of personal history, personal confidence, self-esteem. And I've been a history fan all my life. I've studied history. I will study history forever. And it just brings it to life for me each and every day. So it's very important. And again, instills confidence, freedom, independence to pursue your ambitions. All right. Knowing your family history. Okay. Number 7, and I touched on a little bit. Be about your business. Focus on your business. All right. So a couple of exhibits here tied with a story. So if you look at the YouTube thumbnail, you might see this little peace sign at the bottom. This was a business card from my father. So he was a musician. Okay. He was a very accomplished keyboard player, piano and organ. And he was in a band with his brother. So his older brother started with a Z. His younger brother, his name started with an O. And then Tyrone was my dad. So they had a band called the Zots, Z-O-T-S. Okay, you can see it right here, the Zots. All right. And I knew that. I remember seeing my dad play piano every once in a while when I was younger. He didn't do it as much when we were kids, but I knew he played, and I've heard him play before. And we had the piano in our house for a long time. We still have his old organ that he would, and all the equipment that you had to haul around when you go to do shows too. So his older brother Z, he played the drums. The younger brother O played the saxophone, and then they had another friend also in the band. What I didn't know until my father had passed And I found this business card a few years after his passing, just going through his stuff again, right? Sorting things out. I didn't know that he was the band manager. All right. And it's right there under his name. Manager. All right. He's the band manager. He took care of the money. He was about the business. All right. And I want to show you, it's also in his obituary, which I mean, I was alive. I had a hand in writing this obituary, but I don't remember. We were going through so much. I don't remember this part, but after it sinks in and you just go through the stuff, then you just realize things that you didn't even realize at that time. So in the obituary, it talks about him being a manager for the band up here, and his brother. This line, I think this is the only quote in the obituary. It says, T, that was his name. That's what they called it. And they spelled it T-E-A, like iced tea. T knew how to get the money. I always get a laugh out of that. He knew how to get the money. And again, he was fierce and he would fight. So you didn't play him with the money either. Okay. And I just always get a kick out of that. And he worked hard. Like I said, he paid the bills. He worked. He took care of us. He took care of business. You never caught him on the gossip mill waiting for the latest news. He didn't care about none of that. He watched the news. He kept up with current times. He was interested in all that. But he wasn't out here trying to just spread things. And, even though I have in my notes here, he refused how to use a cell phone. So you couldn't get to him anyway. Even if you wanted to try to spread the news to him, he didn't know how to get it. He wasn't even about it. He was about his business. You have to focus on your business. It's very important for you to do that. My mom just gave me this earlier too. I didn't even plan to use his wallet. Focus on your business, on your bag. Don't worry about anybody else. Focus on you. When you focus on you, you're able to do so much for you, for your family, for your people, your friends, your community. I mean, it starts with you. Okay, focus on you. Be about your business. Okay, so that was number 7. And all of this it's all being tied in together. Okay. Number 8 that I want to share is to free the next generation. All right. So, like we talked about, my father was raised in the older generation. Okay. He was, I guess, in the baby boomer generation, but he was alive before the civil rights movement started. It was a very different time. All right. And, he's a man too. So there are very different societal expectations for men versus women. All right. But he never carried those restricting traditions into our family. That's my personal experience. He never did that. He never imposed older, more traditional norms on us, especially me. I can say freely, especially me as a girl and as a woman. Okay, so, and I have a story to share with that and supporting evidence here. So, as you all can see, and like I said, I'm Attorney Patterson. Okay, this is my law firm office. This book right here probably sits in my office bookshelf. I just took it out for view. You see that law school admission test, 1976 edition. Okay, and inside cover, Tyrone Patterson, Airport Police. I didn't know my father wanted to go to law school. I didn't know he had any dreams or aspirations of being a lawyer until I was studying for this same exam in 2008, 2007, 2008, around that time. I had no idea. So, and that was what, 30 years later, 30 years. I had no clue. I wanted to be a lawyer when I was 12 years old. Okay, I made the realization that I told you I've always loved history. So I had a history class. I'm learning about all these great things, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the founding of the nation, all these ideals, freedom, justice, liberty. They sound so good, but guess what else was happening at the same time? Slavery, okay, against Black people. And I'm Black. How can that be? And so I wanted to study more. How can you do that? You can't do that. And I love reading. I love writing. I loved connecting the dots with this and how you can use these tools for good, right? Instead of the bad. I saw there to actually uphold these very valuable ideals we have. Freedom, liberty, justice. All those are good things, but we weren't practicing what we're preaching. Okay. So that's what really triggered my interest in law at the age of 12. And that's what I decided I was going to do. Tina was going to do. But my father didn't push that on me. Okay. He supported it. And he never told me that's what he wanted to do. I didn't know. Like I said, I was 12. LSAT, I sat for the LSAT. I was like 20 something. It had to be at least 10 years later. So, and he knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I told him. I used to know what law schools I wanted to go to and all that stuff. Okay. And he never wavered from it. He always supported it. The only time I think he got scared was when it was actually about to happen, because then he had to pay for it and it's expensive. Okay. But he never said no. He never put any restrictions on me. He never told me to be, a nurse or a secretary or anything like that. Instead, he always supported it. Okay. And so I want to share just one quick story about that, why it's so important to free the next generation. So the last summer he spent on Earth, 2012, I was entering my final semester of law school. This was just a couple months before I asked for that loan to study for the bar exam. We were sitting in my drummer uncle's backyard, his brother, just having a good time. We did that all the time, every summer. And my father raised a toast up to me, his daughter was going to be a lawyer. And I was proud. And I said, okay, yes, thank you. Because my father wasn't like a showy emotion kind of person. So that was very important to me. And I did not know that was going to be the last summer we would spend like that. That would be the last summer I would see him, And he supported that. He was proud of it. He did whatever he could. Like I said, he gave me the money to study for the bar exam, which was the last test I had to take. That was literally the last formal test I've ever had to take. He gave it to me. And he freed me to do that. He had the finances, right? He said that. That's how important it is. He did not put his expectations on me to do that. That was my choice. He supported it. So you got to free the next generation. You can't expect them to be you. Okay, you can pass on, like I'm doing. This is all I'm doing. Pass on your values. Pass on your ideals. Don't pass on your restrictions and your limitations. Okay, liberate them. Don't limit them. Okay, number 9. I think I also have got some evidence here for number 9. Number 9 is fix your problems. Okay, but don't be afraid to ask for help. All right, that's very important. So my dad wore many hats. We've already talked about a few, literally many hats. Let me see if I can find one here. This is I keep this in my bookshelf too, here in my law office. Okay, this is his sheriff's hat. If you can see here, it says, so there's an employee of the month pin here, and we also have a plaque somewhere for it. I don't know how many of them he got, but this is his sheriff hat. So literally many hats. Okay, that's one of them. He was a musician, right? Like I said, he was in the band. Okay, and he was the band manager. All right, he was a father. He was a husband. He had all these different roles. He was also a handyman around the house, but he was also a certified mechanic. So I just got this too. These are old, really old, from the 90s. Okay, like I don't know if you can see it. Motor vehicle mechanic certificate. That's one of them. Michigan Career Institute for Advanced Automotive Mechanics. He was a certified mechanic. He worked on cars. I don't know nothing about cars, and every time I had a problem, I would take it straight to him. That's one thing I miss the most. He would do my oil changes. I don't have that anymore. Okay, but fix your problems. And I say this because in my early 20s in college, I often had car problems. I don't know what it was. I don't know. I can't count how many times my car would break, and they weren't old cars. They were not old cars. So this was between 2003 and 2008. And the car models were within the same years. Okay. I think there was a 2003 and a 2004. I remember my first model was a Chevy Cavalier. Both of the cars I drove back then were Cavaliers. Who helped me buy them? Well, who bought them from my father, right? But they would break down on me all the time. I always get flat tires. The engine would stall. I mean, something crazy all the time. It didn't matter what time of day either. It would be late at night, not late at night, but it would be dark out. One time it was like so many times right on the freeway, and I would have to like do my best to pull over on the side. Sometimes I'd be alone. Sometimes I'd be with friends just hanging out. We're going to movies, coming back or something like that. But I would have so many problems. But guess who I would call? I'll call my father because he knew how to fix it. So, I could have went there. I don't know the first thing about it. I could have tried to just, maybe loosen the tire or something, but I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do. So that's why fix your problems, but don't be afraid to ask for help. He wasn't always happy that my car was breaking down again, but I needed the help. And he was glad to help me. And it wasn't just me. I remember I had friends who we were either visiting or we were getting ready to go somewhere, and their car would just stall out, like in the driveway, back here in the driveway. And he would be there and just help. He'd lift the car up and change the tire. He put gas in. He had a can of gas. He would do everything. He already had it. So it's very important that we just try. We know problems are gonna come up. Okay, but we can't just woe is me. We have to fix our problems. Find solutions to our problems. I might even say that. Find solutions to our problems and don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay, don't be afraid. And then the last thing that I want to share is to live your life to protect the future beyond your life. And that ties in everything I just talked about. It ties in the exact title of this, not the title, but the thumbnail in the video, how to measure generational wealth beyond time and money. Okay. So here we are 10 years later. I'm still benefiting in many ways from all the things that my father left me 10 years later. I don't know how long I'm going to live. I don't know how long my family line is going to be alive. So that means that I don't even know how much longer that this can or will continue. But it has the potential, if it's done correctly, to be in perpetuity as long as that line lives. That's beyond time. That's beyond money. There's no amount of money in the world you can pay for that. There's no amount of money in the world I can pay for any of these lessons, okay? A lot of them involve money because money is currency. It has to be exchanged. But the lesson, what you learn from it, is invaluable. It's priceless. That's why people so often say, knowledge is the key. But knowledge is just one part of it. Learning is one part. Knowledge is one part. The wisdom is the hardest part, okay? You got to learn this stuff, know it, and apply it. You don't apply it, it really doesn't matter. The value is diminished. All right, but all of this ties into everything that I do with my life and my career. As a lawyer, the people that I advise when it comes to probate, when it comes to estate planning, when it comes to civil litigation, when it comes to the courtroom fights, okay, the courtroom battles. This is why I get so passionate about the cases I take on a lot of times, the things that I'm able to say, because you just can't allow wrong to rule. Can't be afraid. The first two lessons. Got to be fierce. Can't be afraid to fight. That applies every single day in every aspect of life. And I talked about it in so many different ways already. But particularly when it comes to this area of law, if you're afraid to fight, get out of the fight. You just can't do it. So, aside from just the lessons and how he was able to protect life beyond the future, and I'm still talking about it 10 years later. Been talking about it for almost an hour now. I didn't even know it would go that long. But just, before we even get too far beyond time and money do matter too, especially money, right? So 10 years later, I benefit from these lessons, but our family benefits as a whole. The family home is still intact. It's here for the fourth generation now. My father got the home originally from his grandfather, who was the first one here to come to Detroit and get it. My father, me, and now I have a daughter. 4 generations so far is what the home has been able to cover, okay? And then immediately after my father's death, he didn't leave us with a financial burden. He left us with a financial benefit. Okay, so we were able to cover the funeral. I will contribute to a GoFundMe. I don't have any problem with that, but there are ways to do it where your family is not burdened to ask for finances. That hurts my heart because it's not easily preventable or avoidable, but like you got to know, right? And like I just said, you got to know, you got to learn, you got to do it. You got to do it. And so I'm just so thankful that we didn't have that financial burden put on us. You know, he gave us financial blessing instead. And we benefited from it immediately. And because of that immediate effect, we haven't had to carry that burden on throughout the years, you know. So again, beyond time, beyond money, I just think that's a gem right there. Um, and then I have just so much more to say after this. It's all about just legacy. Legacy is not only the money, the property. It is the life beyond your life. Okay, we only get so much time. And we coming out of, I don't want to say we're coming out of COVID. We're not. We're still around. Okay. But just when we entered into this new season of life, because it's not over yet, I don't think, but just this new season of COVID, of the pandemic and all that, we got to see firsthand just how precious life is. Because it is literally here 1 minute and gone the next. You never know. The time, the hour, you don't know. But that doesn't make, it should not make you afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm not sad either. I think I've come here with a lot of energy uh, to share these lessons because we don't do it enough. We just don't. I don't know why. I think people get scared. They get intimidated. It's not comfortable. But if he didn't do these things, where would I be? Where would my children be? If I'm not doing this, who would be saying this? And you know, I'm gonna go back to the beginning because the end from the beginning is all circular. So in the beginning, I said you have to be fierce, and I talked about the story with the IRS and just how important it is to fight in that way, and how you can't be afraid. I mean, if these things didn't happen, where would we be? If somebody didn't dare fight, we're talking about Black History Month, and the reason why we have to is because it's been hidden from us, is because we think that we have no history to be proud of. I mean, you can see the books on the shelf here. These are up year round, by the way. Okay. And many of them I have actually read. This is not just for show. All right. But it has to come full circle. I mean, that's life. And we can't be afraid of it. We can't be afraid of it. We have to share these things. And I'm sharing this with you um, because this is what I do with my legal life, I would say, I guess. I am not just out here to make a name for myself. All right. I'm not just out here to be somebody. I am somebody already. Okay. And we talked about that. I am doing this to help somebody because these things have directly helped me. And because they directly go into all the things I talk about and all the things I practice. Okay. The clients I help advise, like I said, how I help them get through the probate process. The mistakes, oh my goodness, the mistakes I hope to help them avoid so that they don't pass on burdens, they pass on blessings, you know, to their family. And when it comes to the fight, I'm going to talk about this later. I'm going to talk about it more. Not being afraid. Because if you're afraid and you don't have that courage, you don't build it, what happens to the people who can benefit from it? They don't get to benefit from it. And you don't get you don't get to really build because you missed that block. You missed that brick. Gotta lay that foundation. I mean, it's so important. I could go on and on about it, but I won't. I think the last things I'll just say, I'll try to stick to my notes here again. That was totally off script. But I do want to leave you with these last questions and lessons. I have some things to think about. That all of the things I talk about are what life is for. Okay, and we should be thinking about in life. What do we want to do in life? What are we doing in life? How are we going to live our lives? But most importantly, who are we going to be? who are we going to be in life to determine how much life we can give and sustain beyond our years. And that is legacy. So those are the top 10 lessons and 10 years of reflection, that I learned from my father, T. Patterson. Here's his sheriff's pin, right? His name ID pin from when he was a Wayne County sheriff. And so I get to wear it because I'm T. Patterson also. And there is a next generation T. Patterson. So that's 3 generations of T. Patterson there. And I'm proud and thankful, okay, to carry that legacy as T. Patterson into this generation that I'm in. That's my generation. Like I said, into the next generation, and to use this entire legacy. Not for me. I think I said this in an intro video I was doing on Facebook about it. This is not about me at all. You heard a lot of my stories. I shared a lot of things with you. But this can apply to you and to your children and to your children's children. If you get that, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So I'm doing this to use this legacy for good, to inspire and to assist others to do the same. Okay. So I hope this video has been just a major blessing to you. I hope that you have gotten a lot of inspiration from it, a lot of motivation from it, and some generation to action too, because I have given you some actionable steps. Okay. You can go back and watch it. You can save it. You can share it. Subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be getting more active on this channel, but this is a perfect time and opportunity and place to not just give tribute, like I said, because I do that every year anyway in a different way, but to teach from a place that is very rooted in truth. Okay. And that's all I want to do with my life. Don't matter if I'm practicing the law, if I'm advocating on air, if I'm writing, all I want to do is be rooted in truth and share that with somebody to help them do the same. Okay. To always big ourselves up. That's very important. And never to do it out of a place of self-righteousness, but just righteousness. Okay. So I hope you have all enjoyed. I certainly have. I thank you for watching. I thank you for sharing. I thank you for all of your well wishes. And to my Father, rest in heaven. I will see you in eternity. To all of you, please come and join me. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Bye.